someday I will be the one for you and you will be the one for me too. Someday I will be the one for you and you will be the one for me too. Yes, it's true, I love the things you do for me.
Hi guys, it's me Fang. Welcome to my channel. After having kids, I realized that having a clean, functional backyard is very important. So one of the first projects we did to renovate our backyard was to install the artificial grass. It is amazing. Nothing beats lying around on a grassy pad after a long day and enjoying the warm summer breeze, or having a picnic with your family for lunchtime. The reason why that we choose artificial grass is that it is very clean, it requires no water, and it never dies. However, they're not very easy to install. At first, I thought that I would just buy those rows of grass and lay them on the backyard, but that's definitely not how you do it. It requires a lot more work. After our research, we found that we need to clean the land and add a layer of weed barrier. These preparations will make the grass last much longer. Then, we'll have to create enough depth for 6 to 8 inches of artificial grass base layer. This base layer is going to be a mix of decomposed granite and sand. They are the most important layer used to support the grass on top. And finally, you can then install the grass layer on top, which would involve some more gluing and nailing and adding infill sand. The complexity of this process is why it costs quite a bit to hire someone to do it. In this video, I'm gonna share with you how me and my husband and sometimes the kids did it ourselves. To be honest, I would say that this project is actually not an easy DIY, but we can say that it is actually doable. Even with 2 toddlers running around, and for the most part, we had a lot of fun messing around and figuring out things together. So let's jump in. I hope that you guys will find these videos helpful. So before we can work on the land, we have to get rid of all the weeds that have been growing since before we bought the house. This step is important because if we put the artificial grass on top of growing weed, it will create uneven patches below the grass and reduce its lifetime. I recommend getting a wheelbarrow for this project. You need to haul a lot of heavy things around. To be honest, weed is the worst. There's no secret around it though. You just have to sit down and pull them up. Or dig the dirt underneath if weeds had formed a patch. Another problem to keep in mind is waste disposal. You have to throw away a large amount of dirt and weeds. So for us, we bought a couple of dumpster bags from a local company. We just need to fill it and call them to lift the bag away when we're ready. It is super convenient. Once most of the weeds have cleared up, I use a rag to try to even the soil. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, but we'll have to fill any big holes or flatten our big chunks of dirt for the next step. When we did this project, Hayden was still 2.5. It's a perfect age because he just hung around, playing by himself, and occasionally came by and helped us. He is super sweet. It takes a long time to get rid of all the weeds, so sometimes I wake up early to work on it for a bit before the kids wake up. Or we also call some good friends over to help. Anyways, you should expect to spend about a week on weeding if your yard is in a bad shape like us. But eventually, you'll end up with a clean, nice dirt area. Now, let's move on to step number 2. For our yard, we had to build a wooden border to cover the entire area where we wanted the grass to be. To explain this, here's a rough sketch of our backyard. It is about 20 by 30 feet. Artificial grass requires a supporting base under it. And this requires digging down at least 4 to 6 inches. So that it means for our backyard, we would have to dig out 10 tons of dirt. That is a lot of work. Not to mention the hefty bill for disposing of that dirt too. So, instead of digging out, we'll build a wood border up to cover our yard. We'll then just need to later fill the supporting base within the border. We used 4x4 wood posts for the border. We stacked them on top of each other. Each post is about 3.5 inches, so 2 of them will give us a total of 7 inches. Since this wood post will be in contact with the ground, remember to choose pressure-treated woods. They usually have darker colors. These woods have been treated to prevent rotting, so they'll last a long time. Then we'll need 2 steel rebars for every 8 feet of the border. We'll use these to anchor the wood into the ground. And of course, industrial grade weed barrier to cover the ground. These fabrics will hopefully prevent the weeds from growing back. After buying woods, we'll now arrange them around the yard to form a border. To do that, we'll need to level the dirt around the border. There are a lot of small rocks in the dirt, so I have to clean the area lightly using a hand rake. Then I use a bubble level to check and make sure the dirt is level. I recommend you to buy a level that is as long as possible. That will make this part much easier. For areas that are not yet level, I'll fill it with paper sand and compact it slightly. Looks good to go! But before we put the wood post in, we will add another layer of weed barrier. The fabric is designed to let water go through, but it will block sunlight and prevent weeds from growing under our wood borders. Then, we use a long drill bit to drill holes big enough for the rebar. I'll put the exact measurement in the description box down below for you guys. Then, my husband used a big hammer to nail the steel rebar through the wood. This will help anchor the border to the ground. Remember to double check the level from time to time. It is very easy to mess up the level in this step. And we repeat it for the rest of the yard. Building the border took us another week of work. Hayden didn't mind us working at all. He stuck around, observed us, and tried to help in his own way. It's not easy to do this project with a crawling baby. Irvin is still very small and has his own needs, but we were actually able to make it work with a baby carrier. If you are a parent and you still love doing projects around the house, I would highly recommend it. We use metal mending plates to connect the wood sections together. Remember to buy thick plates so the connection is strong enough to hold all the dirt and rock that will fill in a little bit later. Similarly, we use corner braces to reinforce the corner connections. And after 1 week, we are finally done. It looks kinda like a very big planter box. Step number 3. Land leveling. Now, we need to make sure that the yard is clean and level. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, but we still have to work on the land a little bit because our yard is very uneven. Our yard actually hasn't been taken care of for years, so we have lots of debris and old leaves and holes and piles of dirt. We need to get rid of all this. In addition to that, we also need to level the ground. My husband hates anything that involves measuring and leveling, so I took care of this step. I used a rake and a level again to do this step. I gotta tell you that it's a lot of work. I'm glad that we didn't own a big backyard. Otherwise, I don't think that I can still have my back. After a day, our yard is finally even. I'm very happy with how it looks now. I can't believe it has transformed so much. To finish things up, we use a very heavy tamper to compact the ground. So exhausting. We're sitting in the shade like farmers in the old days. So relaxing. Finally, a nice clean and even yard ready for the next step. We're getting there. Step number 4. Weed barriers. You need heavy-duty weed barrier, a hammer, a sharp knife, and fabric staples. You can buy most of these at a hardware store. Remember to really look for heavy-duty weed barrier. I had to order mine online because hardware stores don't usually carry them in store. They're much thicker and more durable. To anchor the fabric to the ground, I use fabric staples. They look like this. I just need to use a hammer to push them into the ground. They should keep the fabric intact. I start from the corner and work my way outward. When I reach the tree trunk, I cut and wrap the barrier around the tree. The fabric should be able to anchor firmly on the ground like this. Then I continue with the rest of the yard. Weed barrier is very important because it provides a protection layer behind the artificial grass. you definitely don't want weed to keep growing underneath. It could damage the artificial grass over time. My husband is working today, so I took over this whole job by myself. It's actually fitting because I know that he hates this kind of detail work and I love it. I love making things neat and tidy, so this is perfect. I also love that Hayden is always nearby when I work. I love his company and I want him to observe and learn from us. Maybe in a couple years, we'll have a handy helper at home. It would be fun to do DIY projects together. Well, but definitely not now. He is such a goofy kid. Hayden keeps diving into the fabric. The wind sometimes puffs the fabric up, so I think he must have thought it looks like a blanket. I'm very close to finishing. By evening, my husband came back home and helped me with the last roll. Sadly, we ran out of heavy-duty fabric, so I had to use the spare fabric that I bought earlier, but we'll use 2 layers, so I think that should be okay. The sun is setting, but I was determined to finish this today, so I kept working. Once I set a roll, I have to finish it before I go to sleep. Here's the result. It's very nice and clean. These fabrics should be able to block out the weed from at least 15 years. Finger crossed. And that is the end of the first part of this video. In the next part, I'll go over the rest of the steps to install artificial grass. We'll talk about how to make the sub-base. It's a mixture between rock and sand underneath the grass. It provides support and helps the grass drain water. The sub-base is one of the most important steps in the whole process. After that, I'll show you how we purchase the artificial grass, install it, and finish it. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the bell button for the notification. I'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye!